All right, so we are broadcasting now. All right, so our first main topic we have right now is the Node.js 6.0. It's more, I just want to talk about it more. It's not necessarily that we're going to do something specific, but it's more of like a heads up. I haven't looked. I know apparently they have an RC out now, so I'll probably try to skim over what's in that, what their changes are, and probably download the RC and at least run the test suites for some of the JS HTTP stuff. So that's the main thing that would potentially break, and that's actually by design. So ideally, Express itself should work. Like none of its code should need to be changed. I know there was an issue brought up in body parser, but it was just from the tests. Basically, it wasn't really a true like actual breaking this. It's just the tests expected that JSON.parse would throw with specific messages, and apparently they tweaked those messages or something in the new V8 is what it looks like. Yeah, so the JS-HTTP modules are what would usually break on a major like this, because what they do is they typically provide essentially features that are not in core or compatibility shims, and so because they kind of like essentially look at sometimes private properties inside of core stuff, that they have the potential to break or something, or that their detection for detecting if a feature was supported might suddenly falsely detect that's an old Node version, if they change something for some reason. So I'll probably try to run those test suites on 6.0 at the very minimum on the RC. I don't know if Travis has the RC available at this time or not. I know they use NVM, so I guess it's up to whatever that thing does. But if Node.js declaration being 6.0 works in Travis, we could certainly look at potentially adding that to some of them. So that's mainly it from my thoughts on 6.0. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on 6.
Well, James mentioned that PR on 6.102 in Node.js. I don't know if you looked at that.
Yeah, so he had CC'd, they had CC'd, I'm not sure if it's him specifically, but they had CC'd Node.js/HTTP, so the HTTP working group, quite a while ago. I think probably like at least a week ago now. And I look at all those stuff when it is mentioned. I don't always comment on them, like that one I didn't comment on. It shouldn't cause us issues. I do like the idea of the pull request. I'll make some comments on saying how pull request is fine. We're not going to be affected by it. In fact, the pull request itself is to basically turn the headers object into essentially a object that doesn't have the prototype doesn't lead up to the base object prototype. Mm-hmm. So you'll lose things like you can't do like .has own property or the weird things like that. We actually do that in some of the Express.js middleware. I believe like the cookie middleware does that because it puts the cookies in an object. And it's funny because it's typically a lot better that way because there's no real like hash maps in JavaScript because you get all those weird prototype stuff mixed in. Of course, every so often people come and complain, but whatever. I think our res.locals is also like that as well in Express itself. So people should be familiar with it. And the good thing is that it won't affect anybody unless they upgrade their runtime, and that has pros and cons. And I think, Blake, I'm trying to think if it was you that I talked about, like that HTTP stuff with? Yep. So, like, eventually, at some point, like, we won't be so, like, transparent to Node Core. It's been really nice. It was a good lifting point for Express in the early days. It's nice now still just because it's what people know. But hopefully at some point there'll be some big change to Express that will help alleviate that. So and what I mean by that is like essentially that at some point Express or so will basically, the res and rec objects probably won't be the actual raw objects from Node.js Core. So that way when the runtimes are upgraded, we have a lot more control. control over normalizing things in it. So, like, for example, the problem with Express.js.com documentation is, of course, it's like, well, where do you draw the line, right? Do you redocument every single thing in core? Do you not do that? Do you tell them to refer to it? Of course, it's confusing on what's available and what's not available, and so that's one of the ideas behind that. Kind of necessary for HTTP 2, just because unless that ends up in core at some point, people are going to have to use a different module, and it kind of falls apart at that point. We wanted to have that for Express 5. It's probably too big of a thing to necessarily probably put in Express 5. It's kind of like, so I think probably at some point we'll probably pull that one from 5. We'll keep it on there, as in I do want to get rid of the prototype smashing, as I call it, where every time a rec and res object comes into the app, we change the double underscore proto double underscore reference, essentially doing object.setPrototype of on it. And even if people can't use mocks, though I hate people using, I really hate mocks, but that's another reason why. It's just basically we'll say if it's now you can use other prototypes, but we're probably going to keep it at use at your own risk for now, kind of a thing, even once it becomes possible, just because there's still a lot to go in it. Plus, we're using all our little shims, and it's hard to know when we can and can't use those. So yeah, it's definitely a kind of a mess. All that, that just comes with anything. If you guys are a little bit familiar with like Happy, they kind of do the abstraction on top, because all of their things that call on it is all an abstraction. They do give you access to the raw ones, but they're an abstraction. Though I think that, and I haven't actually used it enough to know, but I'm pretty sure that they probably have a very similar problem to us. If you try to use, like, say, the HTTP 2 module on Happy, though you don't interact with it, they interact with it, and they probably are going to be assuming that it's like core. So they would essentially have a similar problem to us anyways. So I guess that was Node.js 0.6 and a little bit trailing off there at the end. I saw that, and Rand, if you have anything to say about it, just for the people listening in, I saw that Express.js.com repo was moved into the Express.js org. So it's in there now. I know that you proposed to delete that temporary docs repo, which I don't have any objection to. It's probably better. I think it was more like at the time was let's get the docs somewhere, and then when this new decision was made, and now that it is there, that probably makes sense to probably just delete it.
It's totally redundant. Yeah, there's no reason to keep that around. It's redundant, and it's actually already outdated because we've made a few changes already. So I'll go ahead and delete that Express API docs repo. It's I didn't think anyone would care, but I obviously wanted to go through the proper process.
Cool. So. One thing I did think about for the Express.js site, I think I mentioned it a little bit somewhere, but just if you want to think about it, was that especially these specific meetings at least would be nice to, if we had some way to like put it on like the site somewhere, like basically that there are these meetings, and I don't know the exact details of what it would be, potentially like I could probably make this hangout, especially now that I got the hang of it. I can make them at any time, schedule them for the future, so then we can have that linked for participants out there like even a week ahead of time. Say like next meeting is set for this date and time. Here's a link or whatever, and that way maybe we'll get a lot more people listening in too.
I'll do that. I'll add something on the resources page, just saying we have bi-weekly meetings, and then we can, if we have these archived, or if we have links to the archives, I can put those in there as well. And I'll open an issue and for that, and that should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I believe when they're broadcasting, because it required me to do something with my YouTube account, so I believe they are going. That's where they're going. I'll figure out where they are, and I'll put that in. I'll let you know what that is.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, these should all be recorded somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
People have listened to them, so.
Mm-hmm.
Then another thing I can think of, and that was, I think someone mentioned it before, is probably meeting minutes. I know none of us have really necessarily kept them. So I'm not 100% sure if it's completely necessary at this point or not, but just something that we should probably just think about. Like, probably I could see meeting minutes be like almost like just a kind of like the agenda, and then like a summary of kind of like what was decided on each one. So it's like Node.js 6.0. Summary was we will, Doug was going, at Doug Wilson was going to go, do some tests on the JS HTTP modules to make sure that they mostly work and something like that or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's probably good enough.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm jotting down a few notes so I'll post those in the issue. We can use that as a starting point, and I'm sure there's maybe some details I didn't capture, so you can feel free to add those and yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it makes sense if what you guys think for where the meeting notes would essentially go, or even like probably we'll have a link to that whatever the video gets recorded and then some notes about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that makes sense to go directly in the website, or this repo, the discussions repo, is still empty. So I mean, clearly it could, each meeting can just be a doc in there as well. So I mean,
I think I would lean toward that, honestly, and because I think I'd lean toward not having too much other than just the docs on the website. That's my opinion, but
right. And I guess and I guess technically the website where it says like their biweekly meetings could link to like the repo to say, and here are all the past ones anyways. So
sure,
that makes sense.
That's fine with me. Okay.
I didn't really have too much that I had thought about at the time on the agenda, so I did get my new laptop, and I just was setting up, getting everything all back again, and I think I got all that guys set up now, so I'll be looking at a couple things. I know there's don't think by this time as far as Express goes, there's right now master would be the next patch release, and I don't see that there has been any bugs or anything come up, so I think at this point it's pretty safe to start. We'll probably just start cutting out an 4.14, so we might even say that we'll even maybe potentially release a 4.14 with what's a 4.x pull request, maybe sometime late next week or something, which is after 6.0 releases. So that also gives us a window where if 6.0 does break something or a dependency actually has to change for some reason, then we could easily just put that into 4.14 or whatever. So I think that makes sense. So we can tentatively say probably they said, I think James said Tuesday, I think it was 6.0. Does that sound right? Like they're tentatively. So I would say whatever they are. Okay, cool. Because I was going to say whatever they are, we'd probably do maybe 2 days later or something. Gives us a little bit of time. So probably tentatively Thursday or something like that.
Okay.
There'll be a pull request, a release-based pull request like normal. That will have what all the things is. I will make for sure that I get the list of anything that needs to be added or changed in documentation for you. Probably, I'm thinking probably as a maybe not a pull request or something, but just something to that Express.js.com repo. I don't know if you've had any thoughts on that, but something to say and here are the changes to be made for 4.14. Probably we can just use a little check mark, so as we go through we can just check them off or something.
Sure.
I don't think there's really anything.
Yeah, just be sure and just mention me in the PR because I may not, otherwise I might not catch it.
Cool. What about do you? What about so I don't know how you usually use Git workflow. Do you mention you, or do you want it, or would you rather have it like click assign to you, or what? Do you really
Um,
look at the assignments?
I do, but mentioning is fine. Yeah. Usually, for me, if it's assigned to me, it's something that I'm expected to close out.
Gotcha.
So
Cool. So we'll just mention. I'll just mention. I can just mention you then. That sounds good. Like I said, I don't think that there's much to change in for 414 in the docs. It's mostly minor tweaks. In fact, since we have some time, unless someone had some other uh,
yeah,
agenda item.
I only, a couple of minor things on the doc side. Somebody, and I don't have it right in front of me, but somebody in the community contributed a complete translation of the documentation into Slovak, which is pretty awesome. I mean, so we now have Express docs in Slovak for what it's
Yep.
worth.
Yeah, I did. I
So
did see that. That was pretty cool. I saw
yeah,
that someone made a pull request for the Japanese. That I'm sure it's just a language barrier there. That the only description was, "I changed things."
yeah,
So
I'm gonna have a closer look at that, and I have a colleague at Strongloop who speaks Japanese. I might ask him to take a quick look at it because obviously I don't speak or read
right.
Japanese.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
always I always found that's the hardest part about accepting community translations because it's always awesome and it's always nice to do and even like fixes, right? Especially if it's their native language and they think it sounds weird.
yeah,
The hardest part is just knowing what they actually changed and is it now actually wrong and they just had misunderstood something or whatever. So cool if you know someone who is good in Japanese, that'll be awesome. Just have them just
yeah,
glance at it.
yeah, and we actually have one of the loopback tech leads is Czech, and he may speak Slovak as well. I don't know, so I'll see if he can take a quick gander at the new translation. But yeah, there's a certain level of trust, I think,
Right,
when people, because you know you can try Google Translate, but that only goes so far.
right.
I
But at least
know. I also know people that speak both Japanese and Slovakian, so that's fine as well. If you want
Cool.
to send me links.
Well,
cool.
yeah, the Slovak stuff, I went ahead and accepted the PR just because I didn't know how to confirm it. So you might ask them just if they go to the expressjs.com and look, there's a link to the Slovak community translation on the front page. If they click on that, then it'll show them the translated docs. And as far as the Japanese, it's a PR or something. Let's see. Yeah, it's a PR. I can give you that link if you want it. It's 620 in the repo, but I can put it in the here. And I don't know. Yeah, he didn't really explain, like as Doug said, he didn't really explain
Right.
why.
Yeah, it's
So
probably language barrier, I'm sure.
yeah,
It's usually hard.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that'd be great to get some eyes on that. But yeah. Anyway, so go ahead. That's all I wanted to mention.
Awesome. Cheers.
I don't know. Any other major things you guys want to necessarily talk about? I know that I think since the last time I was on the meeting, I made the group in the other two orgs in Pillar and JSHCP, so everything should be set there. Um, so everybody should have access to that stuff. Also, I know that our next meeting is in 2 weeks, and I'm not 100% sure if I can make that one, but I will let you know. I will definitely. I should at least be able to make this hangout. I'm not sure how the control works, but I think if I invite someone ahead of time to be there, they can start it. So we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Because I think if I keep making them, I think that once I figure out where they end up, then they probably always end up in the same place. So that would be nice. So I'll check that out. I probably might make it just a hangout to test it, and probably ask you, Rand, to see if you can get started up sometime next week. That way we'll know.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
Yeah, now that I got it, so now whenever we make this invite, I'll probably make the next invite. We'll get all those links right away, so we don't have to wait anymore.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have too much else.
I guess I just had a question. It's sort of maybe the eternal question. What are your thoughts on the 5.5.0 release?
Yeah, so I mean, there is the PR that just has those list of checkboxes. I know that Mike had made a bunch of small little changes that goes towards that, which I'll be going ahead and trying to get those merged in since they've been there, no objections, and now that I have my computer, I can merge them. In fact, awesomeness on the merge stuff, I don't know if you guys saw, GitHub now has a thing we can change it to merge by doing a squash commit from the GitHub interface instead of the merge commit, which, I'm going to test that out, but that will help a lot. So I don't have to go to a computer, so it's so much it'll be so much easier, and then I'll be able to even click that button, so that'll be sweet.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and especially if that works well, I may even turn on that feature to make like master a protected branch or whatever. I never did it because then you can't do it manually. It's super annoying. It's really hard to do it the manual way when it's a protected branch. You have to unprotect it, push, and then protect it again. So that'll also help, especially like ideally over time we'll add more and more like committers essentially at first, and being able to use the GitHub features like protected branch will actually make it just that much easier, because then the idea is you can't put it into the branch without making a pull request first, and it all passes. So that'll be sweet. Cool. Yeah, so as far as the 5.0 question goes, like I said, I have been racking my head on this whole HTTP2 thing. I think that probably in the end, in fact, that's kind of like one of the reasons I ended up going off on that thing a little bit earlier, is that probably in the end we're not going to say necessarily that it's supported out of the box. We're going to probably get rid of make sure that we don't smash the prototype, and then so people can, but it will be like probably an at your own risk thing for now, just because of all our shims that we'll have to attach to it. I was really hoping that at some point there'd be traction of HTTP2 and Node.js Core, but it doesn't seem like that quite yet. Otherwise, yeah, just some pull requests, and yeah, it'll be cool. 6.0 will be out. I know there was a little bit of discussion on what the min version of 5.0 will be. We'll probably... So the thing to note is that whatever we pick will probably be arbitrary at this point. So we might require 4 and higher for Express 5 just out of the box. In fact, when we released Express 4 and we required 0.10 or higher at the time, that was kind of high at the time. So, and I feel like doing 4 right now is kind of the same way. There have been people saying, well, 0.10 won't be supported by October or something, but in reality that doesn't matter, because people will use unsupported stuff all the time. That doesn't mean we can't support it. We'll just be like, if there's a bug in Node, I mean, that just sucks. Yeah. But because we do want to make better use and be able to put in examples like things like promises and stuff that will probably require 4 out of the box. It makes it easier for everybody. At some point, that means that we might, especially if it requires 4.0 for main Express. Also, that's the key point. I'm talking about the main Express package, not necessarily all the pieces of it. They could choose, a lot of those pieces are probably going to be still 0.10 just because they don't need to be anything else. So if people really need old support, they can always piece it together. But so that also opens up Express. That would, if we do 4, that would also open up Express itself to take advantage of some of those ES6 syntax and things like spread operators and things. And Blake, do you know how well that works with TypeScript definitions?
Yeah, they all work.
Sweet.
TypeScript is typed up to like some of ES7 even, so.
Nice. Because yeah, that was one of the other things that we did want to do for at some point for Express 5 was at the very least get a TypeScript definition file bundled with Express, and I believe that the latest TypeScript stuff allows you to bundle it with it. You specify in the package.json. Is that right? Yep.
Yep.
So that would be cool. You know, it'll help people who not necessarily people. It'll help people who use TypeScript. But it will also help people just in general for people using certain different IDEs for, tips and things like that. Because even if they're using JavaScript, a lot of those IDE things I've seen are reading not just JSDoc but also TypeScript definitions too. In fact, a lot of them will prefer TypeScript definitions if you have it over JSDoc because JSDoc is hard to necessarily understand exactly what properties and stuff you're talking about. So that will help with just IDE development of Express in general. So that would be pretty awesome.
Cool. Well, I'll be typing or retyping rather because someone has done it before. But I'll be retyping all of Express 4, making sure it's up to date because the one that is currently public is pretty incorrect.
Right. Yeah, because you're talking about the one that's indefinitely typed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had a lot of issues with that, just trying to use it. So I need to fix that since I'll be using Express a lot more over the next month. So with that, I can do pull requests on everything that I run across there, and we can figure out what we're doing for the test suite, whether it's just basic, something basic, a compile test or something like that, or if
right.
we go more in depth.
Yeah, in fact, on that, I don't know what a good way is. As far as I know, it's we could potentially even just because there's all that stupid acceptance tests, we could potentially just run those through the generator or something. I don't know, but I'm sure there's something simple.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if we want to actually do any runtime tests against the TypeScript source. If we want to do runtime tests, we can do that. We can just compile it and then run it. If we just want to make sure that it all compiles and is correct, and we want to have one file that's checking things, so mostly correct on syntax-wise, then it's pretty easy. We just add TypeScript as a dev dependency and run TSC over it without emitting anything, cool. And it'll error if there's any compiler errors.
Yeah, because that's basically if we do add TypeScript, that would be nice. I don't think it's necessarily required, but it would certainly be really helpful to at least know when we add, say, a function that we accidentally didn't define it in TypeScript definition, right? Yep. Or if we add it, or if we change the signature of the function, that somehow it could figure that out.
Yeah, that part's the hardest part. I've been trying.
Right.
I have talks with the TypeScript team about that as well, and it's a tricky piece to solve. Theoretically, it's possible now because they've done a lot of allow.js work where you can actually pass JavaScript to figure out what the definitions of JavaScript looks like. And you could compare that to the definition file and somehow get a diff there. But I haven't done that work, and I'm hoping the TypeScript team might want to do that work. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to point the key thing out was there's a lot of stuff that's nice to have. We don't necessarily need it. Obviously, if it's super easy to just say, you didn't define this method, then that's at least something that we have. Because part of it will have to just be, the pull request review that will just be hey, you're changing an argument. I don't see a change for a TypeScript definition kind of a thing for now. Obviously, the more automated we make it, the more it will help. Also, I guess on this kind of topic too, I forgot about this. Thoughts from you guys on potentially having things like lint definitions in some of these projects, especially probably the main ones, because just to help people out who are contributing probably. I have always been at work, we always use like things like ESLint and stuff. Open source, I have historically, when I usually just ran it because I just changed people's PRs, it was just easier not to. Though every so often you have people changing it, that would have been better if they knew what the style was. The question would come down to how do you guys feel about that, and especially like running that as part of like Travis or something like that, because I've always questioned as well.
Yeah, I have linting enabled on everything all the time as part of pull requests, so that it's like a perfectly normal workflow as far as any open source work I've seen.
Cool.
In terms of what definition, like what ESLint configuration and stuff, maybe just standard if you've looked at that. That's pretty much what you got anyway.
Yeah, that's certainly a question too. There's basically two main ways to go. We could either start with basically just trying to figure out some rules that match whatever's there now and iterate from that, or we just choose like some preset rules or something, like you said, like a standard or something, and just say that's what it is, and that way we don't have to, because the idea is that it shouldn't be something that we need to really bike shed about, just there's some definition, and there we go.
Yeah, I think then, standard, it's pretty much like I've used that ever since it came out, which has been like a while. I can post a link in case you haven't seen it, but it's practically the style that you've already been using.
Oh, you're talking about, I see. I thought you meant it was actually like an ESLint thing. I know what you're talking about now. Sorry.
Well, it actually does use ESLint, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. ESLint has those groups that you could do or whatever. I thought it was one of those, but
it's probably one of those too. I imagine this preceded, I believe, the other feature in ESLint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good best practice. I would only say you just have to make sure that you sort of state it clearly, so people don't do a PR or something and go, well, you didn't follow the
right.
Anyway, just make it clear. That's all.
Yeah, we'll before we necessarily use standard, I'll definitely post this up on discussions for everybody to have time to put their opinion on. Because, in fact, I like it that it already has a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, really my only hesitation with just completely just saying, sure, standard is just, I know that standard doesn't do the semicolon thing, which I know a bunch of our products doesn't because Jonathan didn't like them. And he was able to convince me that I was just like, fine, I don't care to bike shed about this. Every so often we do get people, of course, that are like, either don't like that it doesn't have semicolons or say that the project that somehow makes the project shit. You know what I mean? Like they basically say, well, your thing doesn't have semicolons, so clearly guys are a bunch of morons. So that would be my only thing. I really don't care either way.
People argue endlessly about crap like that.
Exactly, and that was why I suggested that we just use some kind of like preset thing. That way, it's just like we didn't make these rules. It's just these are the rules. No one cares. Just you can use ESLint fix and make it fix it for you. That's what's nice about ESLint.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, cool. I'm writing this stuff down so I can pop up in the put a summary of this on our discussion thing after we sign off. But cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, anything else?
No.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll probably end up 15 minutes early here. As they say at work, you'll get 15 minutes of your day back.
All right. Okay.
Cool. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.